We're very pleased to have with us here today for Talkie TV, Sarah, otherwise known as the Lioness. Sarah has come up with a concept known as Lioness Law. Would you like to explain the concept to us, Sarah?
I'll certainly try. This revolves around the word consent. It's used a lot. It's used in Freeman community. It's used on the television quite often. It's used in Hansard. People are always talking about the idea of government and policing and consent, and it's always seemed to be quite a grey issue. I was discussing this with a female barrister who are of my acquaintance, and saying that people have made it very, very clear that they don't consent. They don't consent to be policed, they don't consent to be governed. They are frisked, they are assaulted, they are arrested, and they have said clearly, it's on camera, it's all over the internet, I don't consent, but it happens anyway. They're still hauled off. This doesn't sit well with me. It doesn't sit well with a lot of people. This idea of it's law so you have to, I challenge, and people who know me know I challenge this. It's law because we say so. Well, who says so? Who says so? Presumably it's those who consent to be governed or to be policed who say this is law. I can only talk for myself. I'm not a lawyer, I don't give legal advice, so nothing that I'm going to say now should be construed as legal advice. It's just my view, my world. I don't consent. And back to this barrister, she said to me, wonderful magic words, almost as a throwaway line, and I'm so thankful for her to this. She said to me, there's no point talking about the fact that you don't consent until you've established that consent is required. That's wonderful, that sits with me, that really, really resonates with me. It works in all sorts of ways. And I thought, right, okay, I can establish that. I can establish that relatively easily, I think. So coupled with starting a law degree and learning how to write and compose a legal argument, I started to go and look for this evidence and find out that consent is required. We are policed by consent in the UK. This is UK specific. And I found any number of incidences and pieces of evidence which I've put together in a document here, and pretty much established that the UK is policed by consent. But what to do with it? Well, who comes at us all the time? Who enforces the state's rules upon us, consent or otherwise? Appears to be the police. They're the gatekeepers. They're the grass. You did something and I'm telling. It's nothing to do with them. We haven't harmed the police, but they get paid to grass you up effectively to the state, with or without your consent. With your consent, fine, there's no problem. If you consent to all this, good, go away, have a happy life. I don't. This is my mission. So the police appear to be the people that I want to make aware of this, and I wanted to enter and open a discussion with them. So I created this document that I've called a preliminary notice before claim. I did it according to the Civil Procedures Pre-Action Protocol, so that there can be no complaint later that I've missed anything out. With the Chief Constable of Devon and Cornwall Constabulary as the defendant and myself as the claimant, or potential defendant and claimant. This is a pre-action letter. And what it establishes, and I can read you the words here, what it establishes are a number of points, and I've itemised them in the document for them so that there's no confusion. The first thing it establishes is that the UK is policed by consent, and I have then quoted various authorities from the Deputy Chair of the Metropolitan Police Authority, from other people from the Metropolitan Police Federation, from Theresa May, people who they cannot say this is a nonsense, it's not true, it's not rubbish, they can't rubbish it, it's their own words that we are policed by consent. I've written the various pieces in here in the legal argument, the various quotes, and I've also sent as exhibits the originals of those documents. So if they've come from the website of the Metropolitan Police, then those pages have been printed, they've been screened, printed and sent as documents with this, as evidence, because that's what I should use in court, should it need to go to court. The point 2 that this notice establishes is that I don't consent. We've established that consent is required, and now we've established that I don't. So at that point, point 3, I say we've now established there's no business between the parties. You need consent to police in the UK. I don't consent. Therefore, we have a line in the sand. We've reached a point where there's nothing between us. Should they step over that line, it will be construed as force. And ultra vires, they're out of line. They're outside their authority, because we've proven their authority comes from consent, in their own words. So this document establishes what the term force means in ultra vires in this case, and then that it establishes that any order given to us by any member of the police is void. It's a void order. It doesn't count. It's not lawful. It's not made with jurisdiction or authority. It's made intentionally ultra vires and void. They know they have no authority without the consent. They know they don't have consent. So what are they doing? Stepping over that line and coming at me. This notice also contains a valid and legally enforceable contract, which says, now we've established the line in the sand, you keep your side and I keep my side. If and when you step over it, you're intentionally doing it, you know the consequences. The consequences are that fees will apply. Fees will apply for assault, for detaining me in public, for detaining me at your premises. Fees will apply for all sorts of things, because you will be contractually, by your performance, entering into this agreement with me, knowing that you didn't need to do so. You had every opportunity not to, because I told you I didn't consent. And we've established that consent is required. It concerned me then that I wasn't really being fair. I wasn't giving them the opportunity to know who I was. How would any police on the street, or someone in a police car, or behind a speeding camera, how would they know that this document refers to me? How would they avoid entering into a contract with me and putting me in a position of force? So I created what I called Lioness law, which is a statement, and it's backed with identification. The term Lioness law, or law of the Lioness as people have been saying, is any attempt at holding me liable to statute will be construed as force and shall be void. Any demand for compliance will be construed as force and shall be void. That's it, simple as that. Having established they have no authority, that is the law of the Lioness. That's my law, that's what I say, keep away. So I've created this little card, little identity card. They know this, they've been sent a copy of this, they've been sent a description of this. And at the top it's got my image, my little two-headed lioness image on it. At the top it says, you have no legal authority over the bearer. Contact your superior officer for clarification, penalties apply for non-compliance. So should any cop on the street pull me over, demand my name, demand that I do this, go there, stay there, don't do this, whatever, their usual nonsense, and they want to know who I am, that's who I am. I'm someone who has established through this document to their chief officer, I am someone who is aware that consent is required and doesn't. And I am someone who, should they persist into making demands and using force against me, will activate the contract that they have entered into me and bills will be sent.
This would apply to other people in what way? It obviously works for you. How can it be applied to other people?
Part of the document I've sent, when I've explained how I'm giving them an opportunity to avoid entering into this contract with me, part of that is the displaying of this this ID, it is as relevant to anyone else who is aware of the situation. Anyone who's watching this film now, or anyone who knows the works that I've been doing, is aware that Devon and Cornwall Constabulary, at the moment, is also aware that consent is required, and that someone displaying this ID does not. It's rather ridiculous to assume that I could be the only person who can display this. There are plenty of people who don't consent. There are plenty of people out there who have made it clear to them that they don't consent. But what they hadn't done, and what I hadn't done previously, was follow that wonderful barrister's advice of establishing that consent is required. That's now been done. The police are now aware that consent is required. They are aware. They have not acknowledged the Wolf reforms required that they acknowledge this documentation within 21 days. It went out on the 31st of May 2012. They obviously, arrogantly, haven't acknowledged it, but that's irrelevant. They've had it, it went out special delivery, I've got a receipt. We know they're aware. What they do about it is entirely up to them.
And should somebody be stopped who's actually carrying one of your cards, what would be the outcome?
Well, that's really up to them. What I have done is I have created a database of people who want one of these cards, who want the police to know they don't consent, and that they are aware, that the police are aware that consent is required. It's up to them what to do. If they want to come back to me and say, the police have stepped over the line, I've showed them this ID, they've still come at me, then the police know that they are contractually obliged to make recompense. I haven't decided, and I haven't spoken to everyone who wants one of these cards, but on the database they have sent me their information, people who do want to carry this. And I'll tell you the reason for a database in a minute. What they want to do with it is entirely up to them, but I do offer the option that they can, or I will, contact their own constabulary for them prior to them getting pulled, if you like, so that we have established, or I have established, that their constabulary is aware.
They have been made aware, yes.
Yeah, there is part of the Police Act, I think, in here. I have quoted it, I'm saying I think because I can't remember if that's the right act. There is part of an act which requires all chief constables to disseminate information at least once a year to their own staff and to other constabularies should they consider it necessary. So, and I have requested that they do that, and I've requested they do that in precisely the same way that they do update their PNC systems and their cameras for people who have diplomatic immunity. There is a process, they have got a process of avoiding getting into deep water with people who know that they have no jurisdiction. So I've suggested in this document that they do that, so I have given every opportunity for them to not step out of line, not to contractually use force against anyone, the bearer of this. I've said the bearer, it's not me, it's anyone.
And what was the website address if people want to go and register on the database?
Oh, that's an easy one, thelioness.co.uk.
Excellent.
The reason for the database is safety. Safety and security. It occurs to me, if people do start activating a contract, and when police step over the line and they are then contractually bound to pay the fees, and they don't, it will have to go to court. It's not a huge leap of imagination to realise it's probably easier for people to be suicided than it is to pay millions of pounds in costs, millions of pounds in court charges.
That's a very strong accusation, but we'll move
Not an
on.
accusation, but I'm looking at it in terms of
I agree with you entirely.
life insurance.
Yes.
Life insurance.
Yes.
So the database holds remotely, it's not on my computer, it's not accessible via the internet, it's not hackable. Remotely holds information, the name, the address, the postcode, the date of birth, the time they requested one of these documents. Just to monitor really compliance of various constabularies, and also to see how many people have taken this to court should they need to, and how many are still alive at the end of the year.
Right, well, thank you very much indeed, Sarah. I think that covers most of it. Is there anything else that you particularly wanted to mention?
I suppose to sum up the fact that with Devon and Cornwall Constabulary I have established that consent, we are policed by consent and that I don't. They are then aware what happens if they step over the line and that they are entering into contract with me. And that they are aware of the terms and conditions of that contract. So due to professional negligence being that they have been given the opportunity to avoid entering into contact with me, they are legally bound. This is sort of the gateway, this is to tell them keep the hell away. I've got on my website various things that are available, for example bumper stickers, you could put it near your number plate, so that police and speed cameras will pick up that image if they take a picture of people's cars, people who don't consent. So anyone who doesn't consent won't just get this card, they can buy other things that makes life easier for them and makes it clearer for their local police force that they are one of the people who is carrying this card and doesn't consent.
So displaying the symbol is declaring yourself protected by Lioness law?
Absolutely, yes. It does say you have no legal authority over the bearer. They are aware of this. So should they then enter into contract?
So it's at that point. It's at that point when you produce the symbol or you point the symbol out to them and they're made aware of the symbol. If they continue after that point, that is the point where they're entering into contract with you.
Yep, and it's due to professional negligence because
they've been made aware.
Chief Constable has been made aware, does know that they have no authority, does know that all actions will be ultra vires because we've established through evidence of their own making that consent is required, and that someone carrying this is clearly someone who doesn't.
Okay, well there you have it, people. Go up to Sarah's site and register your details, and I'm sure we will very soon find out how effective this is going to be.
Yeah, undoubtedly they will step over the line.
They will test it.
Undoubtedly we will have to go to court and enforce this. But the more I think about it, the more confident I become, because there will be very little to do in court. There will be very little evidence to bring. The evidence will be the case will be breach of contract. We have copies of the contract, I have copies of the contract, the Chief Constable has copies of the contract. They also have all the evidence that we'll be presenting in court. So they can't say they didn't know that consent was required. They can't say they didn't know that the person didn't consent because they'll be showing their ID. So the only argument is due to professional negligence, they entered into contract, and why haven't they paid? It's yet to be proven, but that's where we are at the moment.
Thank you very much indeed, Sarah.